First time doing it outside of Ethiopia. First time doing it live.
Yeah.
Business is great, yeah, for sure. You know, you buy something for 50 cents, you sell it for $1, great. It's basic math, right? But where's the satisfaction in that?
Why coffee? How do you end up picking coffee?
I want to tell the story of coffee. I want to give some respect to it. I want to put some highlight on it. I want to do it differently.
You have no coffee knowledge.
No coffee knowledge at that point. I have family in Ethiopia, so I pick up the phone and say, hey, where do you guys get coffee at? Here goes a real challenge for you. Your MBA, like the classes I was taking were great and all, but I was like, this is actually your real MBA. Can you survive as a small business in the pandemic? No bigger lesson than that, I felt like. So figure it out. You want a project? That's your project. I get this call from Amazon, and they're saying, hey, we want to see if you'd be interested in having your cafe at the base of our lobby in our building. I said, yeah. As of the end of 2024, we had 4 retail locations, 100 grocery stores, Amazon with 3 locations, we're Microsoft with 4 locations, we're at Fred Hutch, we're at Seattle University Law School, we're at Adobe. You need to understand what it is that you truly want, and then regardless of whatever obstacle you face, you're gonna work to overcome it. That's a given.
ኤፒሶድ ከመጀመሩ በፊት የፓርትነራችንን ማስታወቂያ ሰምተን እንመለሳለን።
ፉል አድርጎ በዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ ሙሉ አድርግልኝ።
ሙሉ አድርጎ
በዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ ፉል አድርጎ።
አዎ ሙሉ አድርገው። ምክንያቱም በዳሽን ሱፐር አፕ የነዳጅ ክፍያን መክፈል እጅጉን ቀሏል። በኢኮሜርስ መገበያያው ያስገረመን ዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ አሁን ደግሞ የነዳጅ ክፍያውን በቀላሉ የምንፈጽምበትን የሚኒ አፕ መተግበሪያ ይዞልን ቀርቧል። ከዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ ጋር አንድ እርምጃ ወደፊት ለመራመድ ዝግጁ የሆነ አሽከርካሪ ዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ ውስጥ ከሚገኙት እልፍ አእላፍ የኢኮሜርስ አማራጮች ውስጥ ፊውል ፔይመንት የሚለውን በመጫን ፔይመንት ኮድ በማስገባት ወይንም ኪውአር ስካን በማድረግ የነዳጅ ክፍያውን በዳሽን ባንክ ሱፐር አፕ በቀላሉ
ዳሽን ባንክ ሁልጊዜም አንድ እርምጃ ቀዳሚ።
ኖ ሪል ስቴት ለርሶ አንድ ጥያቄ አለው። በሪል ስቴት ላይ አሁን ትልቁ ጉዳይ ምን ይመስሎታል? ባለ 1 ባለ 2 ባለ 3 መኝታ ወይም ቅናሽ አይደለም። የቀሪ ህይወቶ ማረፊያ ያለ ሐሳብና ያለ ጭንቀት ቤቱን ያስረክቡኛል አያስረክቡኝም ሳይሉ እምነቶትን ጥለው በጥቂት ጊዜ ቤቱን የሚያስረክቦት ቤት አልሚ አለ ወይ ነው። እኛ በ11 ዓመታት ውስጥ ከ32 በላይ ፕሮጀክቶች ከ9000 በላይ ቤቶች አጠናቀን አስረክበናል። እኛ የምንሸጠው ቤት አይደለም ታማኝነትን እንጂ። ሁሉም ያውቁናል እናም ያምኑናል። ያልተገነባ አንሸጥ።
በአሁኑ ሰዓት ከኢትዮቴሌኮም እና ከዳሽን ባንክ ጋር ፓርትነር ሆነን እየሰራን እንገኛለን። EthioTelecom and Dashen Bank ይሄንን የኢንተርፕረነር ኤጁኬሽን ፎር ፍሪ ለሁሉም በዛት ስኬል እንድናዳርስ ስላስቻሉን በጣም ነው የምናመሰግነው። አሁን ደግሞ አንድ ወይም ሁለት የፓርትነሮች የተቀበልን ስለሆነ አገልግሎትና ምርታችሁ ከኛ ኦዲየንስ ጋር የሚሄድ ማስተዋወቅ የምትፈልጉ ለረጅም ጊዜ ማስተዋወቅ የምትፈልጉ ፓርትነር መሆን የምትፈልጉ ድርጅቶች ከስር በመናስቀምጠው የአድቨርታይዘር ሬጅስትሬሽን ሊንክ ወይም ደግሞ በመናስቀምጠው ስልክ ኮሙኒኬት እንድታረጉን ጋብዛለሁ። አመሰግናለሁ። ሰላም እንዴናችሁ? ይህ ሜሪ ፖድካስት ነው። የዛሬ እንግዳችን ኤፍሬም ፍሳሃ ነው። ኤፍሬም ፍሳሃ በአሜሪካን ሀገር ከስክራች ጀምሮ በ5-6 ዓመት ውስጥ በጣም ሰክሰስፉል የሆነ የኮፊ ቼን ክሬት ማድረግ የቻለ ሰው ነው። ኮፊ ሾፑ የሚገኘው በተለያዩ ታዋቂ የቴክ ካምፓኒ ካምፓስ ላይ ይገኛል። በአዶቤ፣ ጉግል፣ አማዞን፣ ማይክሮሶፍት ላይ ለዛው ሙዝን ዋን የማይክሮሶፍት ይሁን የአማዞን የጉግል ካምፓስ ውስጥ መልቲፕል ኮፊ ሾፖችን ያሉት ሰው ነው። በጣም ታዋቂ በሆነው ሆቴሎች ማለት ለምሳሌ መጥቀስ ያክል ሀያት ሬጀንሲ ላይ አለው። ስለዚህ ኤፍሬም እንዴት ይሄንን በ5-6 ዓመት ውስጥ ለዛውም ስታርባክስ ሄድኳርተር በሆነበት በሲያትል ተነስቶ መልቲፕል የሆኑ ኮፊ ቼኖችን በትላልቅ ካምፓኒዎች ጋር መፍጠር እንደቻለ የምናወራ ይሆናል። ይሄ ቀረጻ የተደረገው ዩኤስ ውስጥ ከናለው ጉዞ በሄደበት ነው እና ሌሎች ሰዎች ላይ ኦዲየንሶችም ባለበት ነው። ቋንቋውም እንግሊዘኛ ነው። ያው ኤፍሬም ትንሽ አማርኛው የጠራ ስላልሆነ እና በደንብ መልእክት ማስተላለፍ እንደሚችል በእንግሊዘኛ አድርገነዋል። ኢንጆይ።
Business is mostly risk.
just start. ካልጀመርክ የትም አትደርስ።
እዚህ ሀገር የሚገጥሙህ ነገሮች ቢዝነስ ቡክ ውስጥ ያሉ ሞክር እምቢ ካለህም ሞክር ነው። ጊቭ አፕ የሚል እኔ ጋር ያለ በቃ።
Today, my guest is Efrem. I know Efrem for a long time. I know him since 2016-17. So in 2017, actually, I was a college student. So I was doing a side hustle. So we used to have a t-shirt company. So Efrem was like our neighbor on the booth during the soccer tournament. So he was reselling like green bean coffee. So we get to know each other from there. And yeah, so now also, he's client of mine, so I sell him coffee from. He's getting his coffee from Ethiopia through our company, and he's been an incredible entrepreneur, and he's been a role model for a lot of people in the diaspora community. Someone that I point out when people wanna think about cafe or roasting. So it's a long time coming to bring Efrem on the Meri podcast, and I'm glad to do this in person in this cafe. And I'm really excited for our conversation today. Welcome, Efrem.
Wow, thank you so much, my brother Kenan. Honestly, that's a lot of firsts. First time doing it outside of Ethiopia. First time doing it live.
Yeah.
And to do it in English as well. Thank you for obliging me. My Amharic is okay. I can hear it, but not speak it. So I'm grateful, first of all, for all the firsts that you're providing me. Congratulations on all the success. Obviously, I've known you since, you were a student, and I remember just seeing you at SCA, which is Specialty Coffee Association Expo, with your family, and just starting to get to know about Diabensa. And we've been fortunate that from the time we first opened up our cafe in 2019, we've always carried Diabensa as one of our main coffees from Ethiopia. And so that has a lot to do with you. And your team and the product you produced and the people that you support. But also, you've got a soft part in my heart because I've seen your hard work, I've seen your family's hard work, and to get to support is something that's just so meaningful to me and the reason why this journey even started for me alone. But thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful, my brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Efrem. So, I know some of the people that they know you here, but there are online audience that they don't know you, and the people that are here in the audience as well. So just give us a quick introduction who you are, and we'll kick it off from there.
Sounds good. No, my name is Efrem Fesaha. I'm the CEO and founder of Boon Boona Coffee. My journey has been one that didn't really get into. It wasn't intended for it. But similar to all of us, we all grew up with coffee in our households. And particularly for me and growing up here in the US, my family was really intentional about the fact that, we speak the language at home and we practice and we get close to, the importance of being back home and going back. But at the same time too, there was the pull of American culture as well. And so these two things were kind of pushing me as I got older. And really, it wasn't until much later that coffee became that thing. And I'll tell you the whole story in depth. But where we're at now really is that as my career turned into corporate life, I've worked for 3 of the top 100 Forbes companies. So Amazon, Nordstrom, On America Cruise Line as well, underneath the Carnival brand, in a finance capacity. And that was about a 14-year-long career. And then coffee was layered on top of it. And then really from deciding to fully transition completely into the coffee space, that was really in 2019. And since then, we've opened up, we're about to open our 5th location. We have about 10 brick and mortar locations with inside of Amazon, Microsoft, and we have a strong wholesale business as well, where we just recently launched with all of Google campus here in the Western Washington. And so those are some of the growth sides. And then as well as on the grocery store component, we've expanded to over 150 grocery stores. But all of this is not because I'm a brilliant entrepreneur. I'm very much supported by a huge community that has gotten me to this point. And so I'm I'm excited to get to talk to you, Kenan, and share with everybody in the community.
Nice. So let's take you back from where you started, like how you grow up. Do you grow up the whole time here? Were you some of it back home?
Yeah.
How was it growing up?
So my family left Asmara in '76, basically, and went to Sudan and then to Saudi Arabia. And so really from '77, basically, we were in Saudi Arabia, and I was born in, I won't say the exact year.
Born in Saudi?
I was born in Saudi, yeah.
Man, you're Arab, huh?
Yeah. So, definitely. I definitely care, I sometimes I'm like, Saudi, root for.
Really? I didn't know that you
Yeah.
were born in Saudi, okay.
I mean, the thing about it though was too, also when growing up there, I was 5 years old when we left. And so I didn't really get the immersion into the culture. So I did like kindergarten.
Oh, I see.
And then also, we cheated it as well. We lived in an American compound.
Oh, I see.
So, so I didn't really get that experience. And my dad worked for Saudi Airlines. He was an engineer. And so in that time though, he built a lot of relationships with folks here in Seattle with Boeing.
Oh, I see.
Boeing is headquartered here in Seattle. And so what would happen is, he built those relationships and it became an opportunity for him to come to Seattle. And so really about the time when my oldest sister was entering high school is when the whole family moved here. I've got 6 siblings, and so the 8 of us moved to Seattle in '88.
How old were you when you
I was 5.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so
very early.
Very young. And so my first language was really English and Tigrinya, but I was more immersed in just the, American culture.
I see.
And really, as I kind of, growing up in the U.S., you're kind of looked at as like, okay, who are you, And at the time, '88, there wasn't too many Habesha people here.
Of course.
And so they're looking at you like, who are you? Trying to identify you. And so they're like, oh, you're African.
You got an accent.
Yeah, you got an accent, or, you smell like onions. I can smell better or something like, you smell different. So there was these things. And then, of course, when you invite your friends over, it's a whole community center inside your house. And that was the case for us growing up, and so in our household, we very much were immersed in our culture, but as soon as you step outside, it's American culture. And so just really like that time and that growth in that period, I was always embarrassed, I'd be like, oh, here comes my mom, she's got henna on, her hair done, she's walking through the school trying to find me. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, your mom's here, Efrem. I'm like, oh my God, or, even like my dad, he was really focused on our education. I see. And so, he would sit in the back of the classroom.
Really?
Just, yeah. And so, it's not fun. Yeah. And so, I would, my friends or somebody in class would be like, hey, Efrem, your dad's here. And so,
man.
You get nervous and you try behaving. But, it all comes from a place of love, right there. Wanting to, not lose sight of the culture,
of course,
and then also impart it on you as well, which was the fortunate part, right? And so you don't appreciate it at the time, but really as I started getting older, I started to wise up, and pretty much by the time I got to high school, really, I started to think about the importance of my culture as well, and learning more. And I'd probably say it wasn't until college that really a turning point hit for me. So, about right in my senior year of high school, I lost my father. And so he had passed away. He was working for Boeing and he had been on a trip, but he had passed away.
When you were in high school?
When I was in high school, my senior year. So it was very traumatic. And, we were fortunate enough that my dad was, he was, he did his part and raised us well. And, but really, my mom stepped in a lot more. And I had great siblings and a great support system, a family. But still, as the oldest boy, I felt this responsibility, for my family. And so the thought, I was like, okay, I'm a senior, going into college, can I even go to college? I need to now, work for my family. And so there's these things running through your mind as this, just kind of transition in age and in time. So there was a lot kind of around responsibility that was kind of falling on my shoulders, or I was taking on the weight of it. But once again, I had said that I was fortunate that my dad had kind of, been smart and prepared, and so that wasn't a necessity. So I was able to go off to college. I was able to go get an education here within Washington State, and start my bachelor's degree. And my thought was to go into business really at that time, and computer science. And so as I was doing that though, also I think I was starting to also wake up to certain things. And I'm gonna be a little bit more honest and share a little bit more with my community here. So, you know, I would say that, you know, I became more aware of my faith. And so my grandfather was a priest in the Tawado church. And so when we lived in Saudi Arabia for many years, you know, my grandfather would be like, you know, you guys don't have a church, you guys can't practice. So he would record tapes of him doing Ziyama, Dashen, everything, and he would send it to my dad to be a lesson for him. And so he could play it. And inside of it, you know, you see him and he'd say like our names as he's praying and things. And I never really got to meet my grandfather. He had passed when I was probably 2. But one day, and this is after my father passed away, I stumbled across this like big box basically of cassette tapes. And it had his name on it. And so I started playing the tapes and I was like, oh, this is Abu Ethiopia, you know, and so I started becoming more aware of that. And I was like, almost like an awakening kind of happening of like, you know, learn more about your faith, learn more about your culture, learn more in general of where you come from. And so that started to happen around my college days. And so, not that it has anything to do with where I got to, but it definitely had something to do with it. Because about that time then...
What was like awakening call for you at that time?
I think just being a sophomore in college and university here in America, the stereotypes of like, you know, partying and the entire environment of it, it was like, it's not naturally where I kind of lean into.
Of course.
And so that's what was happening. It was like, no. You should probably
be in line.
Be in line, yeah, and you should do some more reading. And so really, by the time I hit my end of my sophomore year into my junior year, this is where I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more information. I dropped out of school.
Really?
I stopped going to school. I said I'm not going to continue on in school. I came back to Seattle. And my school.
Where were you going to school, and what did you?
So I was at the time I was working on my it was computer science basically and business.
Oh, I see, computer science and business. So you dropped out.
So I dropped out. And
what was the reason for dropping out?
Because I said I want to go to Gondar. I want to go.
Really?
I swear, this was crazy. Yeah, I said I want to go study. I was like, I want to go seriously go study. I want to go to Egypt. I want to go to like the Debris. I want to go spend time studying. And so, you know, obviously it sounds wild to say that now, but not too much though. You know, I was just starting to come into this place of like, that's what I need to be doing. Because I think about it too, like, you know, had we never immigrated here, I'll be honest with you, I probably would have a small farm. I'd have some goats, and I'd be doing. I'd be a priest.
I can give you a spot.
Yeah, let me tell you, Kanat, I probably would still. I take you up on it.
Yeah, I would give you a spot in the farm.
Let me tell you, that'd be paradise.
And you give me the cafe.
I remember. Yeah, you can have it. I remember actually a teacher once asked me, you know, what do you want to be when you grow older? I was like, a goat herder in my village.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and not jokingly either.
Yeah.
It was truly like, that would have been very satisfying to me.
Of
you
course,
know? Yeah. Not taking, also being aware of how fortunate I am.
Of
right?
course, yeah.
And I'll get into that as well, about how fortunate I am to have been raised here, go to school here, grow up here. You know, I should have done this many years ago. I should have built this a long time ago.
Yeah, of course.
But there are so many more incredibly talented people that got here just a few weeks ago that are already working on their nursing program or, you know, opening up a business or buying multiple houses. So you really think about like how fortunate you are having grown up here and some of the time wasted.
ኤፒሶዱ ይቀጥላል። የፓርትነራችን ማስታወቂያ ሰምተን እንመለሳለን።
በውጭ ለሚኖሩ ወገኖች አገር ቤት ላለ ወዳጅ ዘመድ ገንዘብ በነፃ የሚልኩበት ፈጣኑ መተግበሪያ ቴሌብር ሬሚት። ነዋሪነቱ የት ነው? አሜሪካ፣ ካናዳ፣ እስራኤል፣ ሳውዲ አረቢያ አሊያም ደግሞ ዩናይትድ አረብ ኤሚሬትስ፣ ዩናይትድ ኪንግደም፣ ደቡብ አፍሪካ፣ ጣሊያን ወይም ስዊድን። እርሶ ብቻ የቴሌብር ሬሚት መተግበሪያን በእጅ ስልኮ ላይ በመጫን ሀገር ቤት ላለ ወዳጅ ዘመድ ገንዘብ ሲልኩ ገንዘቡ በተላከበት ቅጽበት በዕለቱ የአቢሲኒያ ባንክ ምንዛሬ በተቀባዩ እጅ ይደርሳል። ይደርሶታል። ቴሌብር ሬሚት። ቴሌብር ፈጣን፣ ቀላል፣ ምቹና አስተማማኝ። ኢትዮ ቴሌኮም
ዩኤስ እና ዩሮፕ የከስተመር አኩዚሽን ፓርትነር እየፈለግን እንገኛለን። አውትሶርሲንግ ላይ ቢፒኦ ሰርቪስ ላይ ፎከስ ያደረገው ካምፓኒያችን ማለት ነው። በፋይናንስና ቴክኖሎጂ ኤክስፒሪየንሱ ያላችሁ ትምህርቱ ያላችሁ ወይም ደግሞ ኔትወርክ ያላችሁ ሰዎች አውትሶርሲንግ ላይ ለመስራት ፍላጎቱ ካላችሁ ዲስክሪፕሽን ላይ በመናስቀምጠው ሊንክ ተመዝገቡና እኛ ፊልተር አድርገን ኮሙኒኬት እናደርጋችኋለን። ፖቴንሻል በጣም ያለው ቢዝነስ ነው። ብዙ እንቅስቃሴ እየሰሩ ይገኛሉ። እዚህ ሙቭመንት ላይ ጆይን ማድረግ የምትፈልጉና አብራችሁ መስራት የምትፈልጉ በዲስክሪፕሽን ላይ ባለው ሊንክ ተመዝገቡ። አመሰግናለሁ።
So going back to my goat herding dream.
So did you end up going home at the second year of university?
So I came back home, and now I've got to convince my mom.
Yeah.
So my mom was like, you know, Efrem, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no.
What are you talking about? And then she was like, go, you need to think about it. First, she said, Efrem, you started your education, and you're not going to stop something that you started. You finish it off, and if you want to go to Ethiopia, Egypt, you can go. If you want to go to Israel, you can. So she said, you can go do all of that, but you need to finish what you started, basically. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, that's a good point. But I still took that semester off. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time in the church. There was a very a kind monk here. His name was Abba Gabra Kidan Gassasa. And he was very warm and, just a great teacher for me. And so he was also kind of like, yo, you need to relax on this idea, mm-hmm. And so I went back to school. I finished it off.
Okay.
And I came out, and I actually started looking at my master's in theology. Mm-hmm. And so I had interviewed for some schools in the East Coast, and I got accepted, and was going to start immediately after graduating my college. And this is 2004, 2005. And then once I started kind of getting into like, okay, how do I fund this? Because I'm poor. It became something where it was like, you know what, just give it a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. You can come back to it. So I started working, and the first kind of role that I found was in finance. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't have necessarily a finance background, but it was a space where I felt like a good challenge within the space. And so I was able to just enjoy the kind of math challenge and exercise around it. Mm-hmm.
Before we got into that though,
yeah.
like, did you feel like that wasn't your calling to go to like theology school, or now what do you think about it?
No, it took time. Uh-huh. So I kept, putting my toe in the water, basically speaking, and so, by about, so I said I couldn't afford necessarily to pay for a theology school, mm-hmm. because one, it was, out of pocket pretty much. And so I would have to work while paying for it. And so I just didn't have that luxury. And they don't offer financial aid in theology school. And so a lot of it is really just like, you want to do it? Well, you got to pay for it type of thing. And so I said, okay, well, if that's not the case, I'm going to wait a bit. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm going to pay off my school, and I'm going to have no debt. And
I'll go back to.
And then I'm going to start looking at what it is that I want to do. Mm-hmm. Around that 2005, 2006, I had family that were monks in Jerusalem. One was named Abba Abraham, and another one was Abba Gabra, and they were both there together inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then there's also another devotee called Kidana Mehra, is the biggest one inside of Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And so they were both monks there for almost 50 years. And so I said, you know what? I'll go visit them. And so about 2005, I had saved up some money, and myself, my mom, Abba Gabra Kidan, the one I was telling you about that lived here, all took a trip there. And I got to meet them, and kind of fell in love with the entire kind of experience that I had then. And so I decided to come back again another year. And so I came back again in 2006. And then my great uncle, Abba Abraham, said, if you come back a third time, I'm going to put a munkus.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I better relax,
Yeah.
And
so you went back into finance.
So I was still working, like I needed to
What was
have
your
a day job. And so
Yeah.
that was my finance was my day job,
Yeah.
but
So
my
where did you
dream was
start?
somewhere else.
I see.
Yeah, my thoughts were somewhere else.
I see.
And so still nothing to do with anything else except just this, really still like wanting to learn more, become more aware, and not necessarily even become a priest or anything. It was just to really study the faith,
Your faith.
study my faith. And so that was where it all came from.
Yeah. So what was the finance part you were doing?
The finance part that I was doing was really kind of introductions to within kind of more the corporate finance.
Financing, I see.
And so budget forecasting, audits, payroll, analysis on different projects and programs that the business would want to do.
So were you working like for CP firm or?
No, these were all corporate, somewhere in the retail space, somewhere in the life insurance space, but it was always in the finance capacity of those entities.
I see.
And so it wasn't kind of like the investment banking side of it.
Oh, I see.
It's more of like really
Managing
understanding
the
the nuts and bolts and the finances of a business or a corporation.
Oh, I see.
It was my focus. And so, that career was happening, but at the same time, this thing was happening too, this awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So really by the time 2010 happened, it was the financial crisis. Now, I was still working in finance. I was stressed out. A lot of people had been let go of their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Where were you working at that time?
At that time, I was working for a smaller company called Car Toys.
Oh, I see.
Based here in Seattle. They had about 50 locations or so, retail locations. And so it was a kind of a good foundational place for a lot of learning for finance for me. And a lot of what helped me later on in my career in doing this. And so basically by the time the financial crisis is really in full effect and the layoffs have already happened, I'm working in that space and I'm like, any day I'm gonna get told you're fired. And so I was working so hard to keep and maintain a job. And by the time 2010 hit, I was like, that's enough. At that point I was in my 25, 26 maybe. And I said, I need to take a break.
I see.
And so I said, I'm gonna do one more trip to go visit my uncles. And then I'm gonna see where I go. Because at that point, I had said, I'm quitting my job and I'm gonna go travel. And we'll see what happens. So do I dive deeper into the church side? Or maybe who knows where God takes me type of thing, And so I go on that trip, and within about 2 weeks into the trip, this is now 2011, February, so this is...
So you went to Eritrea or Ethiopia?
No, at that time it was only in Israel. I was only in Jerusalem. I was in Jerusalem with my uncles there. And 2 weeks into the trip, my grandmother passes away. And so then I say, you know what, I should probably go to Asmara to go help bury her.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And do that part to support the family, and maybe spend some time there. And maybe spend some time in the Gudam and things like that there.
I see.
But initially it was thought to go to Egypt or to Ethiopia to spend time really in there. Yeah. And so I do that. I go there, and this is now probably about February, March of 2011. And, I'm in the capital city in Asmara, and of course there's a lot of like cafes there left from Italian rule. So you have cafes like Tre Stelle and others, and they would do the roasting inside there. They would have the full espresso bar, and I never really drink cappuccinos or macchiatos here. I grew up in Seattle, so I know the scene here, right? We've got a lot of coffee here, but it was different. It tastes really good, and so something started working its way, I think, in me around that time. And when I had spent about a good 3 months there, basically, and I did get to go visit, time in the monasteries and do that stuff, but I also started to kind of become aware, like, okay, maybe I can hold back a little bit and come back to the States, and I think I know what I want to do. I came back. My travels were for 6 months, basically.
I see.
And I spent most of it, in those two places. So in Jerusalem, in Asmara, but then also in Turkey and such. I didn't come to Addis until later on, actually. And then when I came back from that 6-month trip, I spent 2 months just focused on finance of running a cafe and what my business plan would be.
Oh, I see. So you start laying down like.
I started laying down the foundation.
I see.
For 2 months, I sat at home and I would just.
So why coffee? How do you end up picking coffee?
I wanted a way to be able to do both things. Inside of me was this desire to still stay on finance side, but then I'll focus on Africa and also being here. I knew that I had this love for both places, right?
Oh, I see.
And I also didn't want to have a career in finance that was just, kind of exploitive. In working for corporate America, within the corporate America as we refer to it, you find sometimes that it's a kind of an exploitive space, you know?
Of course, yeah.
And I didn't feel too fulfilled within it. And I said, how can I focus on some trade that allows me to give back on the continent as well as engage here locally, that does some good back home as well as here? And what becomes that bridge by it? And coffee became that bridge. And then I started saying, okay, how are you going to do it different? Well, okay, I want to source only African coffee. I'm going to be selfish about that. I want only African coffee because nobody really does that. And no one puts as much attention on the amazing farmers that you work with and others on the continent. And so I wanted to do something there. I wanted to also find a way to give back more. So it needed to be more fulfilling. It couldn't just be a business. Business is great, yeah, for sure. You buy something for 50 cents, you sell it for $1, great. It's basic math, right? But where's the satisfaction in that? And having seen that and experienced, many that are the owners of these large entities and those that have worked long careers in it, sometimes you find that the wealth that you've gained is great and all, but it's kind of sometimes hollow. And because I was on that spiritual journey too, the two had to match somewhere. And that's where I kind of found myself. And I tried digging into coffee, into how that could become possible. And really in that period of time, this started to manifest itself as this idea of Boon
So
Boona
what was
rising.
like your business model look like when you started first? Like what were you looking at? Because at first when I met you, you were doing more like reselling green beans in a smaller portion for the community. So like, was that the plan? Was the cafe the plan? Was that a bridge to it? What was it?
No, that's a great point, Kanan, because no, it wasn't. The plan was this right here, what we have here now.
I see.
So back in 2011, those 2 months, I wanted to have a cafe. I wanted to have it to be like high-end coffee. I wanted to have a roastery. I wanted to have the traditional ceremony in it.
I see.
I wanted to have a space for gathering like this. And if that didn't exist, then it didn't make sense.
Oh, I see.
So I take this crazy idea and I'm trying to pitch it to Bakes. Like, hey, here goes this great idea. And the Bakes are like, no, no. And really the question became like, how are you going to compete with Starbucks? Like, you're in there, you're in Seattle.
Yeah.
There's only one person that does coffee in Seattle, and that's going to be them, basically. This is 2011. And I said, no. Like, I want to tell the story of coffee. I want to give some respect to it. I want to put some highlight on it. I want to do it differently. And so they were like, no. So I said, okay, that's fine. So March 2012, I incorporate the business and get it established. And I have family in Ethiopia, so I pick up the phone and say, hey, where do you guys get coffee at?
Nice.
And so,
so like you have no coffee knowledge?
No coffee knowledge at that point.
I just didn't know nothing about coffee.
Nothing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew how to get a latte at the bar. At the espresso bar, but there's no. I just knew I wanted to go to the source for it, and I wanted to have those conversations about how to do it better.
I see.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so I started only at home doing just the traditional ceremony, right? So I'm doing it. And of course, my mom is not like gonna be like, oh yeah, use my jevana. No, she's not gonna let me.
You gotta bring your own jevana.
You gotta bring your own. And so like I'm doing it, and she's giving me some lessons, not too much. She doesn't. She's not like, oh yeah, go do it for us. But she's watching, oh, you burnt it or whatever. But I'm just starting to get more familiar with it. And so what happens though is like she starts to realize that the coffee I had, the green beans that I had, were better than the green beans that she was able to buy at any of the stores around here.
I know, yeah.
So then she was like, Efrem, let me have your coffee. And then, we always have coffee all together. And so her sisters, cousins, friends, everybody, like right now, we get together, we're going to have coffee. Oh, where'd you get the Boona for? It's like, oh, Efrem.
Yeah.
And so
you became the Boona guy.
I became the Boona guy. Yeah. And so really it just became an opportunity to like, give it within the family. And then, started packaging it. And I started asking the stores to see if they would take it. And this is now the end of 2012. And they're like, some of them were like, no, like, we buy a whole junior, we break it apart ourselves.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I said, yeah, I take away the labor and all the time, and you'll make a margin and and you'll be consistent and all this stuff. And some of them were okay with it, some of them it took time, but it started to grow. At the same time, I was back at work in my full-time corporate job.
I see.
Yeah, so no time did I really, besides the 6 months where I was traveling, I was always working in finance.
I see. So you're still at your job?
I'm still at my job.
And the business is
And the
open.
business on the side, yeah. It's on the weekends, it's on, so like Friday.
So you're still supplying to?
The local.
Yeah.
So I work Monday through Friday. And then because it's finance, there's peak seasons.
Of course.
And so some days, some weeks you're working 60 hours. But I didn't care. I'd come home on Friday. I make sure I have all my burlap bags ready, and I would just sit there scooping out coffee every night.
So it's not, you're not roasting yet. You're just repacking,
it's just green
selling
coffee.
it through the community.
It's just green coffee.
Yeah.
And people will look at me like, in the coffee industry, they're like, oh, you just sell green coffee? They're like, oh man, like that's not even, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's very true. Like it's just kind of entry.
Yeah, and
but
learning.
that was my entry. Yeah, that was learning though.
Yeah.
So I had to start from something, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So then by the time I got to 2015, so right before we started to meet, I was now distributing to LA, the Bay Area.
I see.
I would go to soccer tournaments. Oh, Ethiopian soccer tournaments in Toronto. Okay. Eritrean soccer tournaments in Atlanta. Okay, I'm going.
Yeah.
And
That's when I met you.
Yeah, I'd pitch a tent, and I would just sell the green coffee. Most of the times it was at a loss, because I was just passionate about what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Were you at the time like you feel like you're confused and you don't know what you are doing?
No, I would say that if anything, I was
because I feel like when people start a business, most of the time,
yeah,
there is a huge doubt on themselves.
Yeah.
Even like this podcast, it was a huge debate with myself. Like, is this gonna work? Is it? Everything is in your mind, right? So when you start things,
you're right about that. I mean, I guess I can't deny the fact that yes, will this fail?
Yeah.
High likelihood.
Yeah, because also it's not a norm in the community to have an actual brand and like run a retail shop.
From both the coffee sector, I was looked at as like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Why is he selling just green coffee?
Yeah.
And then,
if I saw you, I would say that.
Exactly. No. Many times they'd be like, "Hold on, you just sell green coffee, Efrem? So you just buy the coffee and then that's it?"
Yeah.
Because really, it's several parts.
You are testing the water.
Yeah, you're testing the waters, but there's several parts to it, and so I knew what my end goal was, but it just, there's a lot of doubt, of course, but I put a lot of pressure though on myself. It kind of reminded me similar to kind of like my journey into like learning more about my faith and Tuahado. It kind of reminded me of that journey where it's like, oh no, I want to learn. Like, I don't care. I'm going to try figuring it out. I want to study more. It was kind of like that same level. Not to say it's comparable, but it's different side. But it was like there was inside of me something like, I want to learn more about this area and I'm going to go for it regardless. And so I knew I was going to keep moving forward. And if anything, I just stressed myself out. I put more pressure on myself. Oh, why haven't you opened? Why haven't you done this? And all of that stuff is very negative. The reason why I have gray hair is that. Like
you're fighting with yourself.
I was fighting with myself. Yeah, and that's that's useless.
It's good in a way. Sometimes it also could be bad.
Yeah. I would say that it definitely I try not to procrastinate. I definitely try not to be, I say it to myself even now, don't be your own obstacle, don't be your
Of
own
course.
roadblock.
Yeah.
You know, open it up so that you can keep going, or make sure that others can do what they need to do on the path.
Even if externally people see you as you make it, still there is that. Even for me as well, like I feel like it's not enough what you're doing, and sometimes it could be like it burns you out, but it's also good in a way that you can go further out in your career or whatever that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, to say I made it doesn't make sense, but I know that at least seeing you and where you're at, where you've taken the organization, but then also where you've taken the podcast, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, man, because you have made it.
Yeah.
I would, you know, I always hesitate to say, oh, I made it or did something.
No.
But
this is huge.
no. Maybe because now I'm on a Meri podcast, sure. I made it. But truthfully, seeing you encourages me.
Of course. Yeah.
That's why, you know, I'm so filled with joy sitting next to you, because I'm like, man, my good brother's doing this, and so, you know, that's very fulfilling. But at that time, you're very much on this lonely path. So we didn't get to roasting coffee until 2016, and it was the same time I met you at SCA and the tournaments and such.
Yeah.
And really, at that point, we were just roasting small amounts of coffee.
So were you roasting like by yourself, or was it like co-roasting space?
It was friends of mine that were roasters. They had their own roastery.
Oh, I see.
And so I would provide my green coffee. At this point, we were sourcing from Ethiopia and from Rwanda.
I see.
And so I would give them the coffee, they would roast it for me, and then I would turn around and start selling the roasted coffee.
So were you selling the coffee still to the same market, to the Habesha community?
Sometimes.
Or you were pivoting?
They're a little bit more hesitant because, you know, in our community, they pretty much just want green coffee.
Beans,
and so roasted coffee isn't really something that they care for all that much. And so
still, green beans could sell actually more than roasted in Ethiopia. Still. That's a fact.
Well, isn't Ethiopia the #1 consuming country of a producing country?
I mean, green is still preferred to be consumed in Ethiopia.
Than roasted, So, I mean, I would say that, you know, within our own community, it wasn't quite there yet, but I was finding like events. I was finding different, sometimes it was like corporate events. They would be like, hey, can we buy 100 bags of your coffee?
I see.
So it was those types of opportunities.
So there wasn't like one lined up like market stream. You were just hustling, trying, knocking different doors.
Exactly, because the grocery stores wouldn't take me. Like I couldn't put it in a traditional grocery store here. Most cafes wouldn't take me because they don't know my brand or who I am or what I'm about.
And you wasn't in the industry.
I wasn't really. I was still on the outside looking in. So from all those sides, you know, and so I said, okay, I got to keep working. So this is all 2016, 2017.
You're still working at your corporation.
Oh yeah, at this point I'll be honest, I didn't stop working my full-time job until March of 2019.
Really?
4 months after opening up here.
Wow.
Yeah, because I didn't have it all to put together yet.
Oh, I see.
And I didn't want to take from the revenue of the business to pay my wages.
Oh, I see.
I also needed to make sure that I was building a strong foundation. So it's almost like the hustle started in 2011, but even into 2019, it was all just reinvest. And my full-time job was to do that. One of my career changes that I did was that I was working for Nordstrom, and it was a great opportunity working for them.
Were you doing finance for Nordstrom?
Yeah, I was doing finance for Nordstrom. And it was a great opportunity. The culture there, everything was actually a good place to learn.
As good as the clothes?
Yeah, as good as the clothes.
Okay.
As good as the clothes. I mean, and I was learning like about the culture to see what kind of employer I wanted to be for my employees.
Oh, of course.
But I was also at this point where I was like, I need to invest more in Boon Boona. And so I decided to pivot. And at this time, Amazon was growing. They're still growing. But at the time, they were just down the street from us. And there was an opportunity that opened up there. And I said, I think I can go do that. It's very much known that like Amazon, you're going to work hard.
Of course, that's what I was going to say.
You're going to work hard.
Yeah.
And
I started working for Amazon and starting a business is just...
Yeah, and so I thought, hey man, I'm so good at finance. I got this. I have no problem doing this for them, you know, because I definitely felt a little level of confidence. You know, I'm year 10 probably in my finance career, feel pretty good about it. And so I'm like, I can go to Amazon and just rock out. And so I went to Amazon, and it helped me go further within Boon Boona. But at the same time, it was taking up too much time.
Of course.
And by February,
so how's the schedule? Like you work what time? Like office hours, like 8 to 5, Monday to Friday?
No. And the thing is that some of my team was in India, and so you're waking up at 3 in the morning sometimes for calls. Yeah, back there.
So your working hours are not?
Oh, non-existent.
It's everywhere?
It's every day, whenever you need to get a project done.
So how did you get a chance to work on your business?
It suffered actually during that time because one had to give. I was working so much on the company, my company, for the company, that I couldn't really do anything else.
Oh, I see.
And so I said, okay, at a certain point, like, one's got to give. And I did. I chose to leave Amazon and just focus more on it. And this is now about 2016, mid-2016.
I see.
And that really helped.
Oh, I see.
So
you changed to another work?
I changed to another company.
Okay.
I won't say who it was, but you know, I was able to work like 4 or 5 hours pretty much.
Oh, I see.
And get most of my work done, and then go focus on the business the rest of the day.
I'll figure out the business.
Okay. So that was the type of company I should have been working at to be able to manage because I knew I wasn't going to stop doing the coffee. That was going to happen. So by the time I get to 2018, so I'm now a few years, and at this time, Boon Boona still just
green coffee or roasted?
And roasted coffee, and no cafes or anything at this
time.
So
what was your selling channel? Like, was it online?
Selling channel was still predominantly me moving coffee to all these mom and pop grocery stores all over and collecting checks and doing things.
Man.
So on the weekends, it was just filled doing that.
Oh, I see. So you spend the weekend collecting checks,
delivering coffie. Yeah. I'd put it in the trunk of my car. I mean, I have a Nissan Altima, and I would put 5 burlap bags, 5 juniors inside of the car, and the trunk would be weighing down.
Oh, I see.
And then I would go home, I would package it all up, and then I would put it back in the trunk of my car and drive it to all over the city, Seattle, ship it down to LA, ship it down to Oakland, wherever. That's how I did it. And yeah, it was crazy.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, but I found so much satisfaction in it. And,
was there a time like you felt like it's like this thing, like it's already you started 2011, so like I'm sure like 2018 or 17 has been difficult. I'm sure like this thing is now moving in 6 years.
I'll be honest, I think I was only finding more joy in it.
Really?
Yeah.
So like you're just going through like the whole.
I was happy in the fact that I was on the path.
Oh, I see.
I was satisfied in just taking the journey, honestly.
Oh, I see.
And that I was getting closer to it. And maybe I was still looking like to my friends and folks, they're like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, no, I'm getting closer and closer. And that's fine. I'm going to just keep doing that. But I mean, definitely felt fatigued, felt stressed, the desire to reach a goal and not having met it. And then there was other factors too, like, you're thinking about a relationship you're in too.
Yeah.
It was like, yo, you're working how much, brother? Like you need to take me out on a date.
Yeah, of
so
course,
there's things that are also that are suffering.
Of course.
But it wouldn't stop. And it wasn't until pretty much 2018 that I said, all right, I can do this thing. But at the same time, I had to be honest about a lot of things. I had a career in finance, so I was good at that. But I was looking to go and become an entrepreneur or expand my business. And I really hadn't had experience within law. I hadn't had experience within marketing. I had no experience in all these other aspects of business that I felt would be so important before I scale up my business. And so I had this crazy idea to go for my master's. And
so you went for your master's?
Well, this is how it went. So I said, I'm going to try taking the test. So I'm going to take the test and see how I do. If I do good, I'm going to apply. And if I apply and I get in, then I'll go to the school. So it was kind of that. And so I took the test, I did okay. And then I applied to the one school that I wanted to go to, which was Seattle University. And by August of 2018, he was like, they accepted me. So I was like, all right, well, when do I start this if I'm, doing all of this stuff too? Job, business, now a master's degree. Okay, all right, so you're stacking it up. But I said, no. Maybe just 1 or 2 classes, but I don't have the luxury of failing. That's how I saw it. I don't have the luxury. I don't have the financial luxury. I don't have the time luxury to say, oh, I'm going to go back and do this again. No, I've got to go forward with it. So as much as possible, Efrem, prepare. So prepare as best as you can. And so, take classes, read as much as you possibly can, and high expectations for what it was I was trying to do. And at the same time, I got the keys to this building right here.
Oh, nice.
So this
when
space,
was that? 2018?
That was July of 2018.
I see.
I got the keys
so
to this space.
How did you get the key? What does it look like?
So at that point, I had applied for the school, and so I was in the process of getting accepted. And at the same time, I had gotten enough basically to say I could open up this. This place, this cafe here, is about 3,000 plus square feet. It's also located south of Seattle. It's called Renton. And I wanted to be in Seattle, but I couldn't afford to be in Seattle. But I was also determined to have all those things that I wanted within my cafe. So the espresso bar, the roastery, and the traditional side of the ceremony. So I said, I need to have a big space. And so by chance, the building owner here said, yeah, you can have it. You can, you sign the lease.
Nice.
And good luck.
So do you had the finance for it?
I did.
Were you thinking about it?
I
what
had
was
very
it like?
little finance. I had bare minimum finance for it. And
you saved up from where?
From basically all those years.
Oh, of course.
So from that 2012, 2011 year,
you've been saving.
I've been saving. And so even though it was small, it was like save. And then obviously my full-time job, saving from there. And then I could finally do this.
Oh, okay.
And true, it wasn't like, it came out nicer than I expected, but I really didn't have much. And a lot of it was based off of a lot of the art that we have up here is a very talented artist named Yigzao, who came in and was like, what are you doing in this space? And I was like, brother, I have no clue. And he was like, well, let's help you design it.
Of course.
So it was a lot of generosity that helped him get that kind of initial kind of startup of it put together. But yeah, the build out was starting at the same time too.
I see.
So
you start hiring people at that time?
No. I pretty much tried waiting to hire once I knew I could start generating revenue. So I was like,
really?
When can I start making money? Okay, all right. So a day before that,
Oh, I see.
So
you start the place, you still working?
I started building, yeah. So basically my schedule was like this. I know a little bit over the place here with it, but like about 5, 6 a.m. I would get into here and make sure that the contractors are starting to do the work. I would run up to work, which is it's 10 miles, but it's about 45 minutes of a drive because of traffic in Seattle. I'd go work for 3 hours, and then I would run back down here to see how the contractor's doing. And usually they're calling me throughout the day, like, hey, where's this, where's that? So I would take my lunch, which is only 1 hour, take 2 hours.
Drive down here,
make sure I answer their questions, run back up to work, and then work until 4 p.m., and then come back down here, make sure everything is good. And then I hadn't started my school program yet, but afterwards I would go run to school. And so that was my day to try.
Wow, so you're going through school, you're building this space, and wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So when did you jump from the cliff? Like you quit your job and just...
I jumped off the cliff, it was probably about March of 2019. So I opened up the doors January 2019.
So you went for 3 months, huh?
Oh yeah, I couldn't afford to do anything else.
Yeah. So you hired probably people by then, right?
Yeah. So, so I started the build out in July. By December, construction was pretty much done in here. And then December, like the last week of December, I started hiring my first employees for barista and everything. And then January 2019, I opened up the cafe. And pretty much the first 3 months, we started seeing things kind of progress. I think it was the first Saturday after opening that I saw the cafe like packed. And I remember just doing dishes and looking back here and being like, whoa, this is
a dream coming
this
true.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Like people are coming here.
Yeah.
This is crazy. Like it blew my mind. Like it was probably like, honestly, like, a sense of still doubt for sure, but a sense of joy for the fact that having reached that point, even if I knew I didn't know like what would be of it later on,
Of course,
I was just grateful of being at that point and looking back and seeing people in here. And within
so how did it feel like to have the shop open and just seeing it?
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming because just this amount of support that came forward.
Of course.
People came from all over the city, and having grown up here, there was a lot of support already.
Of course.
But everybody would come out and be like, yo, congratulations, and it just felt surreal. I don't know how best to put it, but it was definitely very overwhelming. Because truly, it was almost like a point where like, all that work was worth it. Now you're seeing it kind of come into place. But I never really would get too excited about things.
Of course, yeah. You didn't know the financial outcome.
I didn't know the financial outcome of it.
Yeah.
And I had given myself a year to verify like if it would work.
Oh man.
Because in finance, you're taught to like, have clear metrics as to results, and even though in that year it was very difficult, like revenue was increasing, but so was expenses.
Yeah, of course.
We were expanding our team. We had roasting starting up, more inventory. I was buying coffee from you. So it started getting real. I mean, I remember that year I think it was August, you came here.
Yeah, to visit
your dad,
you.
And we took a picture here.
Yeah.
So even in the first few months you were here. So you didn't know the stresses that
of course, yeah.
It was unbelievable.
So remind me the day like you wanted to quit your job, then I'm like, I'm gonna go full time. And you've been, just working part-time for your business. So what was the decision like?
I didn't tell my job that I was doing this at all. They never knew. None of my company, none of the people I worked with knew I was doing coffee.
I see.
I was too, not embarrassed, but I didn't want them to judge me for the fact that like, oh, that's why Efrem didn't deliver on that project.
Oh, I see.
I didn't want that second guess. I wanted them to think like, oh, Efrem delivers, he gets stuff done. And if I gave them an inch, they may take a foot. And so I never wanted to give them that satisfaction of like, Efrem's distracted. That's why he took 2-hour lunch.
Yeah.
So they never knew.
Yeah.
And even I was scared because by the time January of 2019 happened, like there was like articles being written up.
Oh shit.
Oh,
your
like
boss
hey,
might
Boon Boona's opening. And so I was worried my boss would find out. And she'd be like, Efrem, what's going on? But it wasn't until probably like about February of 2019 that I told my boss, I was like, hey, like, I gotta tell you something. Like, I've got this business that I started up and I've been doing it for some years and now I've got a cafe. She's like, oh, congratulations. But I felt good having waited that long because I felt like there'd be a sense of guilt or she'd look back and be like, that's why this guy's not around. But she was supportive of it.
Nice.
But at the same time too, I noticed that like my team here was calling me up constantly to like say, hey, where do we find this? Or, we've got an issue here, or, we need more cash for the till. And so all of those things weren't being satisfied. And I felt like, which one am I gonna dive into?
Yeah, wouldn't take off without full time.
Yep,
you
and
realize.
so I need to.
Yeah.
And so I then quit.
Yeah, you have to jump.
I started doing 2 days actually.
Yeah.
I was working 2 days for like about 2 weeks, and then I said, I gotta quit.
That's dumb. Wow.
And so it was a slow. It wasn't like very dramatic. Like I'm out of here.
Yeah.
No, it was like slowly, and then I was like, okay, and then I was able to fully focus in on here.
Yeah. So what was like the shift like? When you are working, especially in the US corporate, it's like you are part of a function.
Yeah.
So when you are like entrepreneur, you have to be a soldier.
Yeah.
You cook.
You do it all.
You do it all. Yeah. So how was it like that shift like?
It was. I would say, I put in more hours of work here, whether behind the bar or taking out garbage or mopping or running to the grocery store or whatever, than I did at even Amazon, which was the place where I was working like 60 hours a week. I was probably doing like closer to 80 hours, 90 hours here. I would wake up early, I'd go to sleep late, but I was just so happy.
I see.
The satisfaction was just so much greater in doing this than anything else before. So even now, when I think about like, oh man, like I gotta wake up at 4 a.m. for this thing, I'm like, oh no, you're fortunate to be able to do that. Like, I'm celebrating it. And so like I've never really felt this like kind of burden of like, oh, like I'm working extra.
Oh, of course.
I was more just like satisfied that I am working to build this thing more focused, more intently. But that also meant that some of those habits that I learned in the corporate space need to be applied here. One of the great lessons that I think I learned them at each place, but at Amazon was really like the urgency, a sense of urgency. Oh, I need something from Kenan? Okay, I sent an email to Kenan. He didn't respond to that email. I need to go walk over to Kenan and talk to him directly. Like, where's that thing at?
Of course.
And so the sense of urgency came from Amazon. Culture and, employees and trying to, morale and things like that. Like, those things came from Nordstrom. So each one brought on different things. Finance, basics was from back when I was working for Car Toys. And so all of those things helped in application of what I was doing here. But, I still felt a sense of kind of like, imposter syndrome. People would come in here and be like, who owns this? And I would sometimes jokingly say, oh, like a barista owns it. Because it didn't seem real to them that like I would own it or have this level of responsibility. And I would also feel like, how am I doing this? But at the same time, I knew I just needed to continue to work hard and I will get to where I'm trying to get to. So it was this interesting space of things, but that's kind of how.
I see. So how was it after that, like going full time, and what was the next milestones that you have seen on the business?
The next milestone was really to see if it was successful, right? So here I go at 7 years now of just green coffee and roasted coffee, and I'm in my first year of a retail space plus all those things. How is it going to function? How do I handle my staffing? What's marketing looking like? What are we doing? All those factors. What's the bottom line? And I remember asking, here's a professor. He's actually the dean of the finance department at University of Washington.
Nice.
I asked him, and I knew him. I had taken one of his classes. I asked him, hey, if I give you coffee, would you come and check my numbers? Come and look at my account, like my books. And he said, of course, yeah. He was the only African-American
professor.
Dean, not just professor, the dean of the entire finance department, Dr. William Bradford. He said, yeah, of course. And so this is now January of 2020, and he comes up.
You're paying people as coffee.
Because I can't afford to pay him as a consultant. I haven't afford that bill. But he's like, yeah, let me see it. So I show him the numbers, and he's like, yeah, you're making it work. That's all I needed to hear. The next thing was then I asked the students at University of Washington. They had a program, and the program was like you ask the students to do a research on your business. And so for me, it was, okay, how do I open up a second location? If this one's successful, how do I do it again? What worked here to make this successful to do it again? And so about 5 students, some of them were graduate level, some of them were undergrad at the University of Washington, started doing this research. They did surveys. They looked at kind of different neighborhoods and communities and medium income and all those factors, population density. And they wrote like a 70-page paper for me. And they delivered it, though, in April of 2020. So a month into the pandemic. I didn't even want to look at the paper.
Oh, man.
I didn't want. I was like, even when they did their presentation, I was like, hey guys, like,
actually, I forgot about COVID. Okay,
I'm
so you open up this space
I'm
and
into it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, this has been successful. The dean of finance said it's good, and now you got students trying to analyze how to do it, and at the same time, now a month in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know it, but at that time, I've already laid off most of my employees. There was only 3 of us.
How many were there, like, at the biggest
Prior
point?
to, so I only had this cafe, we were 15.
Oh, man. So you size it down to 3 people.
To 3 people. I would have a table at the front of the cafe, because no one was allowed to come inside. I would go make the drink. I'd go run, deliver it, take order, go back, make it, and just do that.
Oh, man.
And, nobody was out in the streets. Yeah. It was just a very challenging time. Yeah. I stopped my MBA program. Yeah. I couldn't do both.
And you quit your job, and within less than a year, COVID just hit everything.
Within less than a year.
Yeah.
And so I was faced with like, okay, here goes a real challenge for you. Your MBA, like the classes I was taking were great and all, but I was like, this is actually your real MBA. Can you survive as a small business in the pandemic? No bigger lesson than that, I felt like. So figure it out. You want a project? That's your project. And so I said, okay, I gotta figure this part out. And so for the first month, I was doing all of that and then looking at the finances and saying, okay, like, where am I at? Can I pay rent? What am I gonna do? I knew that I did not have the luxury of failing again. I can't just walk away or close the door and say, oh, I'll come back in 6 months. No, I have to figure it out.
There's no other
option. I mean, otherwise, I'm done. So there's no choice. And so the students presented their paper. I got the email from them.
So they not about the expansion, but the survival for the business?
They delivered on the expansion.
Oh, man.
And so I'm looking at this, laughing at it. Because it's like
I'm trying to survive.
But I can't apply this. I'm not going to be able to apply this. And so within about 2 months into the pandemic, because we were fortunate enough to roast our own coffee, we started to see some traction online. And my coffee director was like, hey, Efrem, man, we should do like a subscription program for our coffee. I said, that sounds great. Let's do it. And immediately we started seeing our e-commerce just start to explode, doing numbers better than the cafe was. So we're like, okay, I think we're going to figure this out. So that became a way. We go further into the pandemic. Now I've got a few friends that are saying, hey, we're closing our cafes. And one in particular was Cherry Street Coffee House, which is they had about 12 locations here in Seattle. And he had gotten to the last 4 of his locations to sell. And, the opportunity came for me to talk to them about it. Yeah, and that became the start of a conversation for a second location.
I see. When was that?
That was basically September of 2020.
September of 2020. Really? So during the pandemic, you open up your next location.
And the reason is that I had 2 choices, right? I'm roasting and I'm increasing my roasting production. I have opportunity to sell more roasted coffee, but I also need to get more out there.
Oh, I see.
And I can't do it without a retail location. Because I still wasn't getting into grocery stores or anything like that. And so it was a thought of like, okay, take a risk with another retail location and have another place where you can output more espresso, more retail bags, becomes a marketing space, becomes another experience opportunity, it becomes something inside of Seattle. And here goes the opportunity, because to build this out was several $100,000. That was, a great deal, basically. And fortunately,
so you're buying like built-out cafe.
I bought out the built-out cafe.
Yeah, I see.
And so basically he said, I'm going to give you a deal. He gave me a list of all of his equipment. And I said, okay, based off of the depreciation of the equipment, you've had this espresso machine for 10 years, so, knock off a few dollars here, I'll buy it for this price. He said, increase it by a little bit more. I said, okay. And then I agreed. But it was a fraction of the cost of what I had done to build out a cafe.
I see. Since you built out, you understand.
Yeah, and so what he did then was vouch to the building owner that I was a good tenant. And so, because there's two things. One, you could buy the business, but if the landlord doesn't want you there, it doesn't mean anything. So he vouched for me, and the opportunity came to life for me to open up the second location. And it didn't open up until April of 2021.
I see.
But that's how we got from 1 to 2 locations.
I see.
Really in the kind of struggles of the pandemic, finding an opportunity, also doubling down on retail, so taking more of a risk, but also saying, I'm not going backwards. And that's how number 2 came to be.
Nice. Yeah. So let's go back, Efrem, to opening the second shop. You opened up during COVID. So what was things like that was driving you? Because if I were you, I would run away during COVID to open a second branch. Because at that time, now it seems easy, but at that time, especially for people who have a retail space, it's like they don't know if retail is gonna exist. Yeah. So did you know it would be a temporary thing, and to make that decision, that's just a short time in 2020.
Yeah, I think that's where a little bit of finance helps, where you understand the possibility of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just doing the numbers, because I had history as to what they were producing inside of that cafe, I knew that if bare minimum I held to certain things at least, that I could maybe not make a profit or a strong profit, but I could break even.
You can have another.
I can break even, yeah. And if I can break even, then I can wait until things take off. So a little bit of kind of hunker down, and also when are you going to find this opportunity to get this kind of a deal for a place?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to do it, and if you're going to commit to it, you better do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was many factors, but you're right. It was a wild decision. And I don't think most would probably open up a second location during the pandemic. Nobody would have. And I'd be honest, I did think that, when you're in it, it was September of 2020. I was like, oh, by April of 2021, COVID's going to be behind us.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of you kind of optimism. Yeah. But I think it's, hopeful. But I think what helped though was I was noticing other factors inside of the business as well growing. And so our e-commerce was doing very well. The location here was starting to hired back everybody that we had let go. So within 2 months of the pandemic, we started to do that. So we brought back everybody that we had furloughed. So from all aspects of the business, it was okay. And then January of 2021, I get this call from Amazon, and they're saying, hey, we want to see if you'd be interested in having your cafe at the base of our lobby in our building. And I said, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, tell us about your story, tell us what you're doing and things like that, and we'll see. I said, sure. And they're like, all right, well, let's have you come visit the space. And I'm asking them, I was like, yo, employees, are they even back on campus? And they're like, no, but this would be for later on in the year. So I'm like, okay, once COVID, once they have people coming back to the office, we'll be ready to go, basically is what they're trying to time it for. So I said, okay, wow, I'm excited. I remember being in the build out of the second cafe thinking about man, Amazon called me. And it's crazy because I just quit there, a few years ago talking about, man, this was a tough job.
Yeah.
So now they're calling me for something. That next week I get a call from Microsoft. And they're like, hey, Efrem, we've heard about your coffee. Some of our employees talk about it. We're thinking about changing some of the locations on campus. And we want to see if Boon Boona would be interested. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, you're going to have to pitch. So you're going to have to compete. I said, all right, that's no problem. So they're like, there's about 30 other roasters. I was like, dang. I was like, okay, let's go. So I said, just kind of preparation for it, and created a deck, and kind of gave them samples and all that stuff.
So this is
2021. Yeah, so January of 2021. So I've got two of the biggest companies, and they're all in our backyard, right? They're all here, and they're like, yo, we want to see if this could work. And I'm like, oh, this would be huge. So I am feeling a sense of optimism for other aspects of the business and say, okay, this might work. Well, both of those things happened. Now, they didn't manifest themselves until about September of that year, because the pandemic obviously kept going beyond my April expectation. And so by September, though, we found ourselves in the lobby of Amazon and Microsoft. And when we opened up the Microsoft location, they were so happy about like how we delivered and got everything ready. They were like, hey, we've got actually a second location if you'd be interested in. I said, oh, let's go. And so we started finding more of things like that really helped, one, balance the business in a way, but then also allowed us to kind of, fuel us to continue going in this direction. And so that year, 2021, I would say was probably the most pivotal for us. True, the pandemic was still going on. We were still feeling the pains of it. Revenue was probably down here. At the lowest point, it was down about 70% of revenue. But by, a year into the pandemic, it was holding off at about 40%. And so
from what you're doing,
from what we were doing in 2019 when we had the first year, and even that first year, it was like incrementally growing. It wasn't like, oh, first day, a million people were showing up. No. So that's kind of where we were at. And so just feeling a sense of like, okay, maybe, but it was still very tight. And I was still getting paid almost nothing. And I was still working my, hard as heck possible. But I was very hopeful. I think that August, I think it was actually, so 2021 August, we also got a phone call from one of the larger grocery stores here in the area. It's called QFC. And they have about 60 locations. And they said, hey, we've seen your coffee. We've heard about it. We actually have some employees that are really like, yo, we got to have them on our shelves. And so, I said, I appreciate the phone call, but we're not quite ready for a grocery store. And they're like, well, what would it take for you to be ready for a grocery store? I said, well, we got our retail bags need to fit in the shelves. So we need to make sure that we customize it for that. We want to make it compostable. We want to have different levels of roast for the different customer base that come to the grocery store. Not everybody wants a light or medium roast coffee. So you kind of have to get a little bit darker. And so we want to have a few options. We also have to be price point sensitive for what the customer can expect. But then also, this is an opportunity for us to do some good too. And so for us to do it, we have to find a percentage of our profits that go back to local nonprofits as well. So outside of who we're sourcing it from, there needs to be a cause locally. So it's like a 5-point list of things that you want to have, which make it more expensive and less feasible, but it was part of the expectation for why we would go into grocery store. So over the period of about 4 months, we worked to deliver on that. And February of 2022, we launched across all 60 locations with our coffee, 3 different options, a cause, and a price point and roast levels and all that stuff that we asked for. And the grocery store, we've been with them now for almost 4 years now. Nice. And it's been a great relationship. But those types of things are really what help in kind of making you feel like, okay, I'm moving in the right direction. But none of these opportunities, none of these doors, even to the door of getting into this location, our first location, or even going back to the first grocery stores that took us in, which were women-owned grocery stores that were primarily Ethiopian, Eritrean, Somalian grocery store women owners that were willing to give us that opportunity. So if those things had not happened, we would never be at this point, or at that point, even at that time. And subsequently, anything up until this point right now. Yeah.
So how's been the past 2022, 23, 4?
Yeah, so things only continue to move faster. And so we opened up our third location at the University of Washington. I had a relationship already with them, and when an opportunity came for opening up inside of their bookstore, you know, they were like, hey, you don't have to do anything, just come in, take over. And so we did that. That was our third location. At the same time, Microsoft reached out and asked if we wanted to open up our own location, a physical location on campus in their new campus. And we said yes to that. And we expanded to four retail locations. And that was all throughout 2023. As of, you know, for the most part, as of the end of 2024, we had 4 retail locations. We had about 100 grocery stores. We were on the campuses of about 6 different locations. So we're in Amazon with 3 locations. We're in Microsoft with 4 locations. We're at Fred Hutch. We're at Seattle University Law School. We're at Adobe. And I'll tell you the new things, but those things all happened up until that point in 2024. And then even other things such as...
So how were you managing the business itself? It's a one role. And managing the expansion is another role.
Yeah.
So how were you managing that?
I don't know. I'll be honest, like I did grow my team. I grew my team. We have, at that point, we had about 35 employees. And so I had a good leadership team focused on, you know, finance, accounting. One focused on more the cafe spaces. And then really the coffee side is how we kind of divvied out the main responsibilities. And I was the CEO. And so we had a really strong team that helped us in executing. But I'd be honest that, you know, I love staying very active in a lot of those aspects of the business. And so a lot of it was really wanting to make sure that if I said yes to something is only based off of the ability for us to deliver on it. And so sometimes I would pull back. You know, we had opportunities even in those times where it was like, oh, hey, here goes 150 grocery stores. Do you want to do that? No. I can't handle that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the roaster that we were operating with was just this one right here. And so it had capacity. And my team was already working super hard to get all the coffee in. So there was an exercise of like, yes and no, but more so deliver on the things that you said you're going to do. So can you still source well? Yeah. I still have good partners at Origin that I can get reliable, good coffee from. Am I able to roast and produce? Yes, I can do that. Am I able to provide service in those places? Yes. But as soon as I felt like, oh, it's like a bit too much, kind of pulling back. And then sometimes I push it a little bit, you know, kind of stress test a little bit more. But for the most part, you got to do it. You can do it. It's doable. It's doable. So, you know, I think about how much of a team support is necessary and how much of infrastructure is necessary. One thing I definitely try focusing on is, you know, the saying is don't put the cart in front of the horse, but behind the horse, so that you're always pulling on it, so that, you know, you're expecting what's to come and you're prepared for it as much as possible, so you can deliver. And those are fundamental pieces for us. You know, we've taken on some things that we may not have been ready, but we know if that opportunity was to come, can we be ready? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if it doesn't manifest itself, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But if it does, hey, we're going to have to hire so many more people. We're going to have to expand so much more. So there are these finite exercises that do happen that one does need to manage. And so there's the day-to-day of like making sure you're on top of your inbox. So my emails need to stay in single digits, and that's super important. There's time allocated for meeting with my team. There's time allocated with doing more mentorship and supporting and, you know, meeting with future coffee entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general, supporting any customers that we currently have. All those factors need to still be done. Like you can't let go of that. That doesn't just stop. But at the same time, you can still push forward with other areas. And so, yeah, it's a hard thing to kind of speak of as to how, but I think good habits that I try to apply is definitely a managing of my to-do list, managing my emails, my communication, staying on top of any interactions and engagement that I need to do. Sometimes you do find yourself in kind of this like reactionary position, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. But
so how's business been recently days? The recent days. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the recent days, we're very grateful for a lot of the things that we've generated up until this point. But we most recently launched with the Hyatt hotels, and so we're in about 15 Hyatt locations. About 4, 5 of them here in Seattle, but in Boston, LA.
So they have
so
the coffee shops, or
yeah,
they
so
take
kind of in different forms. So some of it is for banquets, some of it's for in the rooms, some of it is kind of similar to what we do within the corporate spaces, where like they have cafes at the lobby of the hotel. Those are branded Boon Boona, and we supply the coffee to them. And so we've done that with about 15, and we have. We're preparing for more in that capacity as well. The relationship has been great with the Hyatt. And then additionally, we're prepared to open up our 5th location, which is, we'll get to see a little bit of it.
Exciting spot. I'm sure people in Seattle, they know the place.
Yeah, it's the most traveled location in the Pacific Northwest, which is Pike Place Market. And so we've got this beautiful location there that we're going to build out our cafe. And so we're super excited for that. That's going to happen this summer. Nice. We've recently launched in about another like 75 grocery stores with our organic line as well. We do have one more large entity that we're working with. It's probably too early to kind of speak on it, but that should be coming out probably in the coming months as well. And we're really excited about that one too. But man, I don't know what else. It's we've been really fortunate in these things. Once again, it's not my own doing. And so, when we get these opportunities, we always have to think about how fortunate we are. And honestly, it's in gatherings like this, it's those that are listening who are like, oh, check out Boon Boona, and then doors open. I guess the last one is Google, like I had just mentioned earlier, which we just launched a month ago. But none of this is like my own doing. We're very fortunate with the support that we have, but it comes down to also what is the purpose of this. And if it wasn't based off of like, okay, intentionality of sourcing, speaking to the culture, we didn't call it Boon Boona for no reason. There's a reason why. We think that it's important to tell that story.
What was that?
Well, first, obviously, most people don't know what Boon or Boona is.
Yeah.
And so 90% of the time, if I say the words, they're like, oh, who's that? They think it's cute. It's like, oh, it just runs off your mouth. And it's like Boon Boona. But it becomes the opportunity to tell the story of the origin of the coffee. So Boon, yes, mostly used in Eritrea, but also parts of Kenya use the word Boon. And it's even the word for coffee itself in the Middle East. Boona, more common in Ethiopia, obviously. And then the word coffee itself comes from the region in Ethiopia called Kaffa, which is the birthplace of coffee. So even in just telling that story in itself provides an opportunity to educate. Our logo is a representation of how we depict ourselves. So it's done with intentionality so that that story is understood. We focus on just African coffee. Of course, a lot of it's from you in Ethiopia, but a lot of it also from Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Congo, DRC, to Cameroon. And we work with a lot of women-owned and operated farms, smallholders. We pay second premiums and other causes, or we're finding other purposes when it comes to purchasing our coffee. So when it comes to the coffee itself, we want to be able to tell the story of the coffee. It doesn't need to be, the most spectacular, highest end. If we get the cup of excellence coffee from you, it's great. But if, it has more impact though to the producer, that's more meaningful to us. We want to share that story. And so those things are things that are fundamental to who we are. What we do inside of our cafes. And so yes, showcasing the traditional ceremony, but then also having space for the community to come in. We do things like have the library come in here and read to kids inside of the cafe. And so there's like one day a month where kids are all stacked up here and they're, somebody is reading books and singing songs, which is beautiful. Poetry night, art days, and so It's intentionality around the spaces that you create so it becomes a communal space. So we can gather and do things like this in here. And I think those things have resonated within the greater community. Obviously, there's a lot of places to get coffee, but where can you make it more meaningful of an experience within the coffee? And I think that's where Boon Boona is finding itself at, is exercising this muscle of like, no, it doesn't need to just be, oh yeah, you get your espresso latte and then you're out. Yeah, sure, that can be the case. We want to be able to help expedite in that. But it should be more meaningful though too. Like, I want people to ask about the coffee. That means something to us. And I think the consumer base as well is moving into that place, which is more rewarding for us. Because the more that people ask the question, oh, where does your coffee come from? I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to ask.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we're at now. And for our continued growth, it needs to be continued based off of those things. So it needs to be based off of impact, and engagement, quality product. So we'll leave that to you.
Yeah, I'm really happy actually for the location. Like, I just checked out the new location you're opening up.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you. It's an amazing space, and it's like incredible representation for the community.
For sure.
So we looked at this journey, like from your childhood to where you are now. So there's a lot of people in the audience that want to know, like, I'm sure, like, what are the things that you would have done differently from your journey. I'm sure you have learned a lot. You did it the hard way. Probably the easiest way to do it probably is like working in the same industry, just opening up the same thing.
Sure.
So what are the things that you wanted to share with people about that?
I think it goes two things. One is on the side of like, your own journey, like what it is that you're trying to do. In anything, it needs to be something that you're passionate about. But I also think about like how much pressure I put on myself, the expectation to deliver, in 2011, this, I wasn't ready maybe. God hadn't written it for me at the time. It was, you got to wait 7 years for it. And so I think about like the amount of pressure and the time and the stress I put on myself, once again, the gray hair that I put on myself really in those years of like saying, you're not there yet. Why haven't you reached there yet? That is unnecessary. Because if you think about like, okay, if every day I'm working slowly, I'm packaging this coffee and I'm working slowly to get to that place, then one day it's going to happen. The dream doesn't fade. The desire isn't going to go anywhere as long as you're working on it. But if you start to say like, like I haven't done that thing, or I should be doing, I didn't make that phone call, or if you're procrastinating on the actual task that would move you closer, I can understand the stress around that, and indecision becomes a problem. But really being kind to yourself, being thoughtful, being, you're working on it. If you have a goal, you're going to get there. Just take care of your health, take care of yourself on that journey to get there. You're gonna get there. And so I think about it from that side. The other side, you're right, you touched on it. I wish I had spent time while working at those corporate places to have worked as a barista. Because I would have probably gotten much further along, probably a little bit faster, more understanding around coffee, versus just the traditional approach of, Boona at home.
Yeah.
I think that would have helped. So some of those technical skills, cupping, being engaged in more cupping sessions, all of those things would have helped in strengthening my skills. And I think that because I was so focused on like, packaging and doing the thing,
the business side of it,
that I didn't make the time for that. So those are the two things that I wish I had done better of to help me on my journey to get to this point.
Yeah, there's always a question from especially diaspora community running the podcast. So there was always like, how do I start doing this, that? I was like, just focus on like learning first. Like if the journey itself will lead you. If you want to start a cafe, then just work in a cafe and learn about what barista means, learn about what, how coffee sourced. Then throughout those journeys, you'll meet people that will work with you, that will be your supplier, that will help you understand things.
Without a doubt. You build a relationship. Matter of fact, you start to know baristas. When I started the cafe, nobody wanted to work for me.
Yeah.
Because they were like, who's this guy?
Who
like,
are you? Yeah.
So, it's like if you already have a community with inside of the barista,
industry.
coffee and the industry, then it becomes more likely. They're like, oh, okay, I know what this guy's trying to do. So without a doubt.
I feel like that has been, I'm sure that not coming from the industry makes it extremely complex.
Yeah, it does.
And it takes time. You built it the hard way, from what I hear from you.
Definitely.
So like you would advise people actually to work things.
Work towards the things, Now, I would say that...
At that time, was it, you didn't see it? Like nobody told you that?
I think I did, but I knew I was already probably spread a little thin.
Oh, I see.
And then also trying to find, what would the schedule be working for a cafe? I'd have to be there on the weekends. Well, I got coffee to distribute.
Yeah.
On the weekdays, I'm working my full-time job. And if I was to work, it'd be in the evenings for a few hours. And so it became like, okay, I'd only be able to do like 3 hours, 2 days a week or something like that, which might work in some cases. And I think that maybe I'm giving excuses for myself now.
I see.
I should have been able to find time for it a little bit, but I think that's probably where I would have done it.
I see.
Yeah.
So what was the move that you feel like made you successful? Because even to fill this space of expertise, I feel like a lot of people struggle with that usually when they start cafe.
Yeah.
So I feel like on my end, I feel like you made the right decision on hiring the right expert. Sometimes also it's difficult to know even if the expert is right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you need to have the knowledge. So what was the go-to place for you to learn, and how were you navigating through even hiring the people?
It was all, I'll be honest, a lot of it was on the job.
Yeah, just learning on the job.
Because as much as I wanted to get my MBA, work my, I was doing some, there was like a cohort, of like entrepreneurs.
Oh, I see.
And it was a program at the university as well. So I was in this cohort with others that were small business owners as well. And it was helpful, but if I couldn't apply it immediately to the things that I was facing, so an employee complaint, or how do you build out your schedule, or simple things, marketing, all those factors, you're just kind of constantly in this place of like, all right,
trying.
How do I do it? Okay, I just got to try it and see if it works. Now, you do take measured approaches, but then I also say that the other important thing is to have mentorship. And so throughout my journey, I've gathered so many mentors. The one thing I'm not afraid of asking, and maybe this is a bit too much of my ego here where I'm saying I'm not afraid of asking, but sometimes I am, but I will ask someone, oh, how do I do that thing? I don't know. I'll ask a barista, be like, yo, how do I do this thing? I'll ask, a former head executive at some large corporation, be like, how do I do this thing? So there's no one I'm gonna ask how to avoid the pitfall. Because once again, I still believe I don't have the luxury of failing. I need to keep pushing forward. So how do I avoid the failure? Is by surrounding myself with advisors, mentors, guides, people that are not necessarily there for, financial gain or for this to grow or something like that. It's more like because they truly care about me, I care about them, and I want that relationship. And then I find that the wisdom and the guidance has been abundant. And with that, I've been able to overcome and resolve a lot of issues because of them. And there's numerous. I mean, matter of fact, I'll ask anybody in here. I'll ask my cousin. I'll ask Nati over here. I'll ask any of them for guidance. If I think that they have a perspective that's going to help me avoid an error. That's the only thing. That's the probably most useful tool. Probably the most helpful thing. Not to base it off of your own. Oh, I know. I try the opposite. I don't know. Tell me, show me, guide me, and then things happen. Yeah, I think that's probably actually the biggest lesson. That's probably the biggest lesson.
What also is your advice for people that want to take the entrepreneurial route from what you have seen, especially on the diaspora community?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it all starts with the passion for something, whatever it is. It could be anything. It could be in the food industry. It could be in any area Wherever your passion is, your heart will be able to, like your heart's desire needs to be satisfied. And so you need to understand what it is that you truly want. And then regardless of whatever obstacle you face, you're going to work to overcome it. That's a given. I sometimes liken it to, as a student, you know, I would take a chemistry class, you know, I'd take a math class. And, you know, for my chemistry class, I didn't study, I don't enjoy the material. And so I get to the day of the test and I'm like, man, why am I in this class? Whereas in the math class, I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for math. I know this material already. And I'm in that exam just going through it. It's two different approaches approaching it. So if I'm not doing the thing that I am passionate about, which is math, then I'm going to struggle. Because as soon as I find that first obstacle, I'm going to be like, I'm out. But if in doing this wild journey over the last 13 years, whatever it's been now, you know, the only thing that I can say is that, and it's actually something that Nipsey Hussle would speak to, which is like, I went through every emotion, I went through every challenge, but I went through every emotion to get to where I'm getting to. The only thing that differentiates me from anybody else is the desire to go through all those emotions. Whether you're crying, whether you're stressed, whether you're happy, all those things, you're going to feel it. But it's only if you're passionate about that thing, whatever that thing is. Let that be, you know, whether it's coffee or something else. And so I think that's the first. Determining what it is that you're passionate about will lead to everything else. From there, the world is yours. Yeah.
So what's the plan? What's the mission?
I think about that a lot. I've been, you know, definitely giving it more thought. I'm fortunate enough now, you know, wife. I've got 2 kids now, and I think about, you know, future for them and things. And so, you know, can I work as hard as I am right now? Probably not. But it also means, you know, maybe having a bigger team. But it still comes down to what is my passion. Am I still passionate about it? And for a fact, I am. You know, if we were to get a phone call and say, hey, you're going to expand to here or do this, that's not what excites me so much as what is the mission, what is the purpose. And if we can fulfill that, I'm satisfied. If it loses sight, if it becomes something else, then I'm happy to exit. So it's not one that's based off of like, oh, I'm trying to reach 100 million in revenue or things like that. Those things don't satisfy me. It's not what I'm doing this for. It's more about what is the purpose and what is the impact. You know, this right here is impact. This is meaningful to me. Seeing you, this journey, getting to spend time here with all of you, being in the company of you, getting to experience this. This is impact. This is meaningful to me. Because once again, you know, seeing that journey for yourself, looking at you and seeing how your journey has progressed brings so much satisfaction to me. And the like staying hopeful for what's to come for yourself, for others in here who have spoken about potentially opening up their own business or expanding, that brings me joy. And
you want to be the reason for, like, inspiration for the people to make the move?
I mean, that's much greater than my, you know, I appreciate that, and I definitely want to do good, and I want to do good within our community and to serve. But my desire is only to be a good reflection of, you know, a good upbringing, and as much as possible, you know, satisfying, you know, my God and doing the right things as much as possible. But, you know, if I do right, I'm striving for that.
Yeah.
And I think we have so many others in our community that don't get the light, that deserve it. And I find some motivation in this. You know, once again, I was fortunate enough to grow up here. And I was fortunate enough to get an education here, start a career here, and open up this business. I am behind. I'm behind. When I look at, you know, some of our brothers and sisters who struggle to make it here, right? You think about that journey to make it here. and then within a short period of time are, buying a house, starting their schooling, starting up a business, taking these risks, supporting their family back home. You think about them, they are actually the real champions. So not myself, but them. Because truly they have, in a short period of time, done what I've been fortunate enough to do in this length of time that I've been here, right? And they have less of that opportunity, the language barrier, other factors, right? So they don't get the light as much as they deserve. And I think that they bring me more inspiration than this, to be honest with you.
So for you, you wanted to continuously grow as a coffee chain. That's the plan.
Yeah, in short, yeah. Definitely. But in a healthy manner.
Oh, I see. Like slowly. So you wanted to push more toward the retailer, like as a cafe, or you wanted to push as a roaster?
I think that there's a balance to a good business. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah. So if we can manage our retail side healthy, we can manage our e-commerce side and that grows healthy manner, our wholesale within grocery, other aspects, and that's why even the hotel side, or even in the corporate space now, right, with these tech companies, that's diversification. That's a healthy manner, but still managing to do it effectively, right? Having a good team to help execute those things, that's super important. If I was to just say, I just want to go in retail, there could be limited. COVID could happen again, right?
Yeah, you never know.
And so I could be in a problem there. If I was to say, I want to go in just grocery stores, there could be a consolidation of grocery stores. So there's one chain, and that one chain chooses not to take you anymore. Whatever. It's extreme.
So
thoughts,
you wanted to grow on the different
avenues.
Yeah.
Different healthy avenues. And I mean, sometimes you realize some of those avenues are not as, they may require a lot more investment in time for what it brings back. And so you have to make the critical decision of being like, I can't do that anymore. So there are some tough decisions that need to be made as well on it. But as much as possible, diversifying a business is a healthy approach, and that's something that's basic for any corporation.
Speaking of investment, like how has it been like financing the business? Is it like you're self-financing or getting financed?
Yeah, so for initially it was self-finance, and really it wasn't until, and then I also had, and one thing I also wanted to do as well was like people that have been a part of the journey, also giving them a percentage of the share too. And so those that have been employed with me get a percentage too.
Oh, I see.
So there is that side of it. And then two, once we got to a certain point, there was really an evaluation of what do you want in this thing? And once again, I like to surround myself with good leaders, good mentors, good guides. And what I wanted to do was bring in smart money is what it's referred to. And so smart money is somebody that can invest, but not just invest their financial, but their point of view, their experience, their expertise into the business as well. And the first time we did that was with it's an organization called Vault 89. And a good friend of mine, his name is Doug Baldwin, and he was a former Seahawk football player who has now kind of moved into more the nonprofit side and more into kind of really doing good just in the community. So he's built a community center nearby and just a whole host of things. So it's someone that I've known for some time. And I wanted somebody like him for his values to help in guiding and structuring it, but also his input into it so that he gains from it as well, and that it helps propel Boon Boona as well. And so we have, but it's only been in this approach where like I can bring in people that are gonna add more to Boon Boona. Because not all money is good money, and I'm not selfish enough to just want to do this thing by myself.
Of course.
And so
you brought in investors.
I brought in investors. It's
when
still
was that?
very 2021.
I see.
And I still maintain over 80% of the business, but those that have been in are those types of folks. And even as we go forward, will we bring in more investors? Possibly, potentially, but once again, it needs to make sense. We're not in it for the growth of financial gain, no. We've actually changed some of our laws, our bylaws, to reflect those things, so that even if I'm no longer CEO, those things are still embedded into it.
I see.
So, for example, we are a B Corp company, which is a company that does good, and so there's about under 5,000 companies throughout the world that carry that certification, and it's an audit on how well you treat your employees, environmental impact, social impact, several factors, and you're graded on that score. We've changed into what is not just a corporation. A corporation means that you have to optimize profits for your shareholders. We became a social purpose corporation, which means that we are also based off of what social impacts do we have in our community that we're measuring against. So what are we doing in our community? It can't just be profit. You can't just be making money. What is it that you're also doing in your community? So these are things that we've changed in our bylaws to reflect who and what we want to be as we continue on this path. Mm-hmm. And then even setting up committees now that can kind of help in facilitating that. So once again, the first thing to do on a journey like this, and one that's constantly growing or pushing forward, is to have people that can advise you and guide you, mm-hmm. so that you don't mess up and do it as right as possible. So just ask the question, be like, yo, I need some help.
I see. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One is like building family. We were talking about it. Yeah. So building family when you're building business it's a complicated journey. Yeah. So how has it been balanced? Actually, here it's even more difficult. Yeah.
I could probably see that.
Yeah.
So I've got a great wife. Mm-hmm. She's the smart one. She's the engineer. Mm-hmm. I just do coffee. And so, before I even said, hey, I've got this opportunity to expand to another location, it was right when we found out we were having our second child. And so she was like, when does that open? And so I said, this might be about that time. Mm-hmm. And she was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that you really have to have somebody that believes in your mission and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And wants to support your desires. But then there's also the responsibility of you need to be present too.
Yeah, of course.
You better change that diaper. Last night, hey, you better go take care of baby when he's, crying in the middle of the night. Okay, that's part of it. Yeah. And does that mean that you're tired going into work? All right. Mm-hmm. But, having a great wife or a great, you need to make sure that it's okay there before anything else. And so I've been fortunate that, she understands. Mm-hmm. Of course, sometimes I do push it a little bit, mm-hmm. But she's incredible.
Still finding the balance, huh?
Yeah, still finding the balance. And I think that as, the kids get older as well, different things would need to change as well, my availability needs to change. Yeah. I don't want to have that regret 10, 20 years down the road. Oh, I never saw my dad.
Yeah.
Because he was working.
Yeah.
And then they hate Boon Boona.
Yeah.
Right now, my daughter is like, oh, we're going to Boon Boona? We're going to Boon Boona? So she can get a treat.
Yeah.
Eventually, if she doesn't see me, she's going to despise it. She's going to for having just disappeared. Yeah. So I think about, hearing from mentors again, from folks around me. Yeah. They're like, that's the most important. I have a really good friend who had reached very high levels in his career. It was general counsel for Amazon and for Facebook, and he retired. And the reason he retired was because he wanted to primarily focus on his kids. Mm-hmm. He said, I want all my attention on them. Mm-hmm. If he's telling me that, that's definitely what I need to be doing.
Of
So
course.
Yeah. So
how about mentor wise? Sometimes people would have the important people in their life, but utilizing that could be difficult. So how do you see that? How do you utilize mentor?
Well, I look at it as I think in general, because these are relationships, you should be reaching out often, just be like, hey, how you doing? How things going? Just general.
Yeah.
And then a challenge comes up. Oh, it's a financial challenge. Or I'm trying to negotiate something. I'm going to reach out to them and be like, hey, here goes the issue. I'll have them evaluate it. They'll say, hey, send me the numbers, send me the documents. They'll review it, and I'll send it to 2 or 3 of them even. And then they'll all give me their feedback. And then I'll sift through it. Like, all right, I like this one, I like that one. Have a conversation with them and understand where they're coming from, and then execute off of that. But I would say that, once again, you already have to have that existing relationship with them. And it comes from a place of transparency. Because most, especially at least the ones that I keep around me, my mentors, are people that I genuinely, yes, love, and then they love me, and they also believe in this. And so if that's a situation that works, if this was something different, if this was like, something exploitive, very bad, then yeah, they wouldn't want to be a part of it. But they understand what it is that we're driving for. They see the sincerity of it.
Yeah.
Then for that, they're like, what do you need, Efrem? Yeah. How do I help you? I'm going to make sure you don't mess up. Yeah. I'm going to give you all my experience, my education, whatever it is that you need. You need me to look at these documents? I got you. And that's kind of how I go at it. But and then just sometimes just be like, hey, let's get coffee. I can't afford to pay you, but I can give you coffee. So then just go fishing for coffee. Just come in.
Yeah. So I wanna close up just by asking you a couple more questions. Yeah. Then I'll open up to the floor so they can ask a few questions. So how does the coffee business work, just in a simple manner for people to explain, like on the retail side, roasting side?
Yeah. So
what are like the process?
The process in total.
From sourcing to
right. I think of it as a wheel.
Yeah.
And so start at origin. So I reach out to Kenan. I say, Kenan, what you got? Who's doing something good? Tell me a story. Tell me something that's happening there that's important, that's impactful.
Yeah.
And then is it good coffee? And then he's like, yeah, here goes a few samples, consider it. We take it back. I have my team who sits in the lab. They'll roast it, taste it. They're like, Kenan, we want this.
Many coffee.
And then we bring that from Ethiopia. It takes 3 months, sometimes longer.
Now it's longer, actually.
Yeah. And then it gets here. And once it gets here, then we say, okay, now we've got the coffee. Put it in the roaster. We throw it in the roaster. We start to produce it. We adjust maybe to see what the outcome is. We'll take one coffee that he'll send us and we'll roast it maybe about 10 different ways to evaluate what kind of flavor, what profile, what taste we're wanting from that coffee. Settle in on one. Start to get all the information around it. Get it out to the cafes. Our cafes are staffed by a great leader for like a general manager, who then has cafe managers, who has assistant managers and baristas. So there's a leadership role. And then also those individuals are experts in dialing in and trying the coffee and making sure that it tastes right within our equipment to produce the best outcome. And then we also have wholesale partners then that also want to try this delicious coffee from Kenan, who then we'll provide it to as well. And so we'll send them samples as well. And so that's kind of how it gets dispersed amongst it. Now, of course, it's an oversimplified way, but once again, kind of talking about that circle, it's that sourcing, the roasting, the, really like making sure that quality control is happening, and then getting it out to those within our team to really try and make sure that it works well. And then the final one is to the customer, whether in the cafe experience or on the wholesale side of things. And so it's kind of that whole wheel. And we're selfish about that wheel, full integration of that, because we really wanted to control where our coffee was coming from, where it was coming from. Now you can buy a coffee based off of who or what or profile and things like that, for sure. But we really wanted to go to the source and focus in on just coffee. Sometimes, I'll get hey, inside of your container, why don't you put shuro and stuff like inside there? So you bring your coffee in shuro. I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Really? People
say, they're like, why don't you just do tips on the side over here? I'm like, I don't think so. We're not serving kutfo here. So it's like and so the thing is like we want to be able to be experts in the thing that we're good at. You could be great at one thing or good at like 5 things, and we're trying to just be great at one thing, which is coffee.
So you've been getting a lot of ideas from people. It's like, You should do injera.
Non-stop. Oh, this place is so big, you could have... It's like the idea.
So how do you even filter those advice, actually?
At first I used to, oh man, I'm going to hear some bad advice. I'm going to read some negativity. You have to be confident in what it is that you're doing, I think, like that your mission is true and that you're trying to do something good. That's where it starts from. Then if you do that, if you can like do that part, then the next part is to humble yourself to receive the feedback. Because truly, sometimes you do get good feedback in that negativity. Hey, this costs too much, or this is this or that and that.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I can understand where you're coming from, or what. There's maybe something inside of it, so I don't want to discount it. If it's too much good, also, I don't need my head to be, overwhelmed. I don't need my ego to be big. Humility is a good thing to try working towards, and so if as much as possible, it's like, no, I'm figuring it out, and that's my response to it. Is like, oh, you're doing great. No, I'm figuring this thing out. So then it allows for a space to receive some feedback, because in the feedback, it's things that you don't recognize. I don't see everything in this company, and so I have to be able to receive information. And the only way you can do it is if you're not like, oh no, I'm perfect and I know everything.
Of course, I feel like you have to. The more you start to understand a lot of things, you have to know how to ask the right question.
Yeah.
It's mostly how to ask the right question.
You're right.
Yeah. No matter who you meet, like able to have the ability to ask the right questions, which I think I learned from the podcast recently. I always ask questions, but like I realize actually you get a clarity from asking a lot of questions, even yourself or others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that too. Like, if you think about it, what you're doing is you're doing a great job of listening, right? And so in listening, you're taking in information, but then you're also going to think about like crafting a question within that space to kind of dive deeper into it. And in doing so, you become more aware of whatever that specific thing. A lot of things. And so, I agree.
Yeah. Let me come to the last question.
Yeah.
What we asked the whole guest that come on this podcast. So, what have you learned from business, working in corporate, and from family, spiritual life? We talked about a lot of things. So, when it comes to one conclusion, what is that one wisdom you want to share with the audience?
I would say that in business and entrepreneurship, I think that sometimes the desire for the glitz and glamour of it, of holding a position of title, it's heavy, but I think that the most important thing that one needs to recognize is that there's an opportunity here. And that opportunity is, yes, it is a business and you want it to be profitable, successful, all those things. But it is hollow. It is empty if it doesn't have any purpose or any meaning for anybody else besides yourself. It's just for your own gain. It's useless. It needs to benefit somebody else. It needs to provide an opportunity to somebody else. Even if it's just words of encouragement, right? If I can't even financially give, donate, or support, then it needs to be words of encouragement. And a leadership position is one where one really helps support and uplifts others around them. So I think about it in those ways. I think about the responsibility and the title of uplifting the team and the people that you have around you, but then two, how are you giving back, or what is the purpose of what you're doing? Because truly the financial side of it is useless. It's not useless. Obviously we need to make a living. I'm not trying to discount that. But don't get caught up in it. It needs to be more than just yourself. Anything in this life needs to be more than just yourself, truly. So whether it is in business or in anything else, that's a fundamental piece. We're not on this earth alone. We have a whole community. We have a lot of people that we could do so much good for. And sometimes it's as simple as encouraging somebody, uplifting someone. That's it. I would say that's probably the biggest lesson, the only lesson, and the only thing that if I can impart or do, if I do that well, then I'm pretty satisfied, on that. So.
Thank you so much, Efi, for letting us use the space.
No.
I wish you all the best luck and you've been inspiring for a lot of people here, I know, and keep up the good work. And as I said, on the new location also, I wish you all the good luck, all the best. Yep. There's already guaranteed spot, also, thank you so much for everyone that came out. I already thanked them at the beginning, but thank you for being patient and for listening to us. I appreciate all of you for coming out. I know some of you came also from far, and we'll close it off. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah.